Tennessee Titans. We just got absolutely embarrassed at home in Indianapolis. It was just a Derrick Henry basically bought the entire Colts defense, and I understand we didn't have many key players such as Bobby Okereke, DeForest Buckner, and Danico Autry, but that's still no excuse for allowing 178 yards up on the ground for one running back, and that running back is of course Derrick Henry. He proved to be lethal. I think his performance single-handedly changed the entire path of the game towards the beginning, primarily in the fourth quarter. It was we scored. There was 14 straight touchdowns by both teams, two by the Titans and two by the Indianapolis Colts. And after and it would be 14 to 14, and after that it would not look good. It did not look good for us whatsoever. After that point, after that 14 to 14 scoreboard point, our the receivers played well. By receivers, I mean AJ Brown also played well. Or AJ Brown played well along with Derrick Henry, so they got two things working for them: the passing attack and the rushing attack, which I did not expect from to do well against our defense. As I mentioned in the as I mentioned in the game preview between the Colts and the Titans, I mentioned how statistically good our defense was, ranking both top five in the passing and passing and rushing not attacks. Defensively, we were top five in both passing and rushing, is what I meant to say. And that clearly did not show at all in this matchup. Uh, Derrick Henry got 27 carries for 178 yards for three touchdowns. And the reason I believe we won last game was not because of special teams. Special teams did not play as big as a role as people expect. Sure, it helped us take the win. Sure, it did help us build some momentum, but it definitely wasn't the deciding factor for the game. What was the deciding factor was how we held Derrick Henry to an insignificant amount of yards, at least for him. He was held to 105 yards, but that is the amount of yards you need to be able to contain Derrick Henry. Obviously, it did prove to be favorable for us 2 weeks ago when we blew them out by 17. Derrick Henry obviously learned from his mistakes 2 weeks ago and obviously obliterates our entire defense by rushing for nearly 200 yards, 140 of which were in the first half. So clearly, the first half performance has been a theme this last couple of games. We saw that versus the Titans too when we won. We were up by it was like we started off slow in that Titans game, but with Rodrigo Blankenship field goal, we narrowed their lead by 4 points to make it 13 to 17. We also saw that versus the Green Bay Packers when we were down 14 to 28. We were down 14 to 28 versus the Green Bay Packers. Luckily, our defense pulled through and held Aaron Rodgers to 3 points. But Derrick Henry just exploded in the first half. It was just way too much. This is something you couldn't come back from. We were down by 21 points. Our offense wasn't as explosive this today. Let me pull up the stats. Naeem Hines actually only had 10 carries for 29 yards. Oh, so obviously he was only getting around 2.9 yards per carry. So obviously Jonathan Taylor losing him was a bigger blow than I expected it to be. Naeem Hines didn't quite get the job done. He did, however, have a good receiving performance, but in terms of rushing, I don't think Hines is our go-to running back in the future. So obviously, once we get Jonathan Taylor back, that will be a huge upgrade in the rushing attack. Uh, However, I do want to take some positives out of this matchup. We got T.Y. Hilton more involved with 4 touchdowns and 81 receiving yards with 1 touchdown. And I wanted to let you guys know that this game wasn't as bad as it seemed. It only seemed bad after it did seem bad after halftime, but we could have made a comeback. We had chances to make a comeback. It wasn't as big of a deficit as people thought. Uh, I know the Titans were 38. We were 20. We scored a touchdown to make it 20 after we scored we after having 14 we scored a touchdown which had 6 to the board, so it was 20 and they had 38. So if we got the 2 point conversion, it would have been 16-point lead, only a 16-point lead, which is a 2 possession game for the Titans. So if we just and this was at the towards the end of the third quarter too. So that's a lot of time left. But sadly, we didn't take advantage of that moment. But if we did take advantage of the opportunity, we could have stopped Titans one more time. We could have scored one more time, making and got the 2 point conversion, which would have made it an 8 point game, and then we could have stopped it another time and scored another time, which we got if we got the 2 point conversion, we could have tied up the game. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So that just goes to show how important DeForest Buckner and Danico Autry. Well, maybe not Danico Autry. Danico Autry is a big part of this defense. Don't get me wrong, but we got the win last week against the Packers without Danico Autry. So I meant to say that DeForest Buckner plays a huge role in the leadership of this Colts team. Keep in mind, this Colts team is a young team. Maybe besides Xavier Rhodes, this team is still very, very young. Xavier Rose may be the only veteran on this team, but DeForest Buckner was definitely a huge blow to this team. You saw anytime Ryan Tannehill gave it to Derrick Henry, it was like he was just pushing for 8, 9, 10 yards, and so every um every now and then he would get like 20 yards on the ground. So it was just not even the passing attack. Sure, they did give up some big plays on on that side of the ball, but they did give up some big plays on passing side. But it was mostly Derrick Henry doing Derrick Henry things. He just carried the entire defense on his back to 3 touchdowns. So that's 21 points. So subtracting 21 from from the 45 they got, so subtracting 21 from the 45 they got, that would be 23 points, 24 points. So the final score would have been 26-24 if we stopped Derrick Henry. It was not that we played bad defense. It was that we played bad rushing defense, actually. I don't know what I was going to say with that. But it was the fact that we played rushing defense. It wasn't the offensive fault. I don't blame the offense. It's just that no one can. It's hard to keep up with a player like Derrick Henry. And so I'm not gonna say anything negative about this team because it's really not that big of a deal because we are still in wildcard contention or playoff contention. But it really impacts our views on what analysts think about the performance of this Colts team. The media will maybe get into the player's head. I don't think Colts can be considered a sleeper team if they're playing the way they play today. But some there's also unnecessary fouls they should have done. They shouldn't have done, which is mostly Rockets, and there was the pass interference. That was unnecessary. penalty because we saw the safety, I believe was Julian Backman pulling up. He was after the ball was in the air, he was coming in for that double team. Most likely was gonna knock AJ Brown, forcing an incompletion. So that pass interference really wasn't necessary because you saw the safety, you saw Julian Blackman offering help. And then you got that illegal hands to the face, which really changed the entire momentum of the game. I'm gonna be honest. The illegal hands to the face by Rocky Sin on Corey Davis. It was fourth down. It was third and goal. Our defensive line sacked Ryan Tannehill, but the play would be called back. They would have gone for a field goal, but the play would be called back on an illegal hands to the face by Rocky Sin, giving them a new set of downs. So it ultimately would be reset to first and goal on the 1 yard line, and they just give it to Derrick Henry to punch the ball in. So that was the basically the main factor that I think that was the turning point, or that's the point where things started to really go back bad for the Colts, or not where it started to go bad for the Colts, but that's the point where they realized the mistakes they did in the past came to haunt them at this moment. So, but I'm not gonna blame this loss on Philip Rivers. This Philip Rivers played how he should play. His receivers didn't catch passes. I know Michael Pittman had 3 drops today. But he's a rookie. He's a rookie. I don't blame him at all. Michael Pittman is a great young player. He did. He was the reason why we won last. He was part of the reason why we won last week's game. He did outstanding versus the Tennessee Titans. So I don't blame him one bit whatsoever. He played. Maybe the pressure got to his head. It's just a one-time game. It's not really that big of a deal. Zach Pascal had a couple of drops, but I think this the all the flukes. This team has one of that has the second lowest drop percentage in the league. But I think all the only flukes of the season came during this game, and I think this is why we lost so badly. Everything went wrong offensively and defensively. So when you put up a performance like that, you're bound to lose. You're bound to lose unless you have an excellent quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. But nevertheless, hopefully we're humbled by this loss. Hopefully the players are humbled by this loss. Yeah, hopefully we're all humbled by this loss. This really sort of put us in the everyone's sort of starting to call us Super Bowl contenders because of our matchup versus the Packers. But unfortunately, that Super Bowl contender play style did not show up against the Tennessee Titans. But so this is just my post game review. This is just like a bad performance, not really talent. It doesn't determine the talent of this team. This is just like a bad performance overall by this team. Obviously, DeForest Buckner and Denico Autry were huge blows. So was Jonathan Taylor. They were all huge blows. But I think this game could have been won by if we just stopped Derrick Henry. This was what frustrates me. If we just stopped Derrick Henry from rushing for 140 yards in the first half. 60 yards is fine. 60, 50, 60, that's fine. But the fact that they allowed for 140, that we allowed 140 yards in the first half was what really frustrated me about the defense. But but you saw them play well in the second half again. But obviously, the for second half was more towards the offensive side of things. They were just it was just three and out. Oh, one three and out after another three and out. So this is just my post game review. This is just what I think about the team. More videos are gonna be coming up this week. Don't be surprised if I post every day this week, cause I'm very dedicated to this channel. I want to connect with you guys, and hopefully we see a different performance different performance against the Texans next week. With that note, I am going to end this video, and thank you, hashtag for the Shoe Nation, for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.